Hello and welcome to this edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Paul Werlin.
And I'm Brenda Mahoney. At Arlington Public News, we bring you stories of interest to Arlington and surrounding communities.
In tonight's newscast, the town gives the okay for a medical marijuana dispensary to move in. Consultants will take a look at the town's schools to see which are best suited to deal with growing enrollment. And we look at how those from Brazil are dealing with the Zika disease.
Plus, pies when you want them without the work. We speak with a local woman who really does deliver. That and more coming up next. Stay with us.
A medical marijuana dispensary may be moving into town. The Massachusetts Patient Foundation wants to open a store for approved patients on Water Street. Representatives went before the Board of Selectmen where they voted in non-opposition, but a permit is still required from the state. News intern Stephanie Francis has more.
On Monday, the Board of Selectmen voted in non-opposition, allowing the Massachusetts Patient Foundation to pursue a permit from the Department of Public Health in their quest to open a medical marijuana dispensary in Arlington.
Now we have a request for statement of non-opposition to medical marijuana dispensary from the Massachusetts Patients Foundation.
Several concerns have been voiced, including the Arlington Police Department. Chief Ryan has stated in documents that the potential addition would increase police demand and therefore require 4 more policemen, the operating cost totaling $400,000.
The community benefit agreement speaks to 3% of gross revenue, and the estimates that the applicant has put forth is that could result in anywhere between $200,000 or $500,000 in revenue for the town based on what their sales actually are. So you're absolutely correct. Annually, yes. Yeah. So on the low end, you're right that would not satisfy. Okay.
The dispensary would still need an approval from the Department of Public Health and is required to pass the Board of Health's regulations.
The regulations don't really go beyond what the state is requiring. The state's regulations that are already in effect through the Department of Public Health are quite comprehensive and cover, the full spectrum of issues. Our regulations essentially adopt those to a certain extent and allow a mechanism for local oversight and inspection such that we can respond to complaints and conduct inspections as necessary to ensure Arlington's public health and safety. There are a few minor variations, a few things that are covered in the Board of Health regulation that are specific to Arlington that would not be covered in the state's regulation, which pertains directly to medical marijuana, is ensuring that a medical marijuana facility in Arlington is operating solely for that purpose. So it limits convenience co-buys, so you wouldn't be able to also sell alcohol, tobacco, e-cigarettes, lottery, places. It currently has a placeholder for placing restrictions on the hours of operation. And I think it also has a requirement for the dispensary to hold an annual community meeting with this local abutters or stakeholders and other people who may have an interest in that business to discuss any concerns and be able to provide feedback.
If the Massachusetts Patient Foundation receives their permit from the Department of Public Health, the next step would be for the Selectmen to approve the community benefit agreement. This is Stephanie Francis for Arlington Public News.
The town is looking to get a better sense of what school properties can best solve the surge in student enrollment. Numbers are going up at the middle school and some of the elementary schools. There have been a range of scenarios discussed, such as adding on to the middle school or reopening the former Gibbs School. Superintendent Kathleen Bodie recently urged the school enrollment task force to look into holding on to that property.
And frankly, I think that it's an investment, it's an asset the town should keep. The land itself is going to be enormously valuable in the years ahead, and we don't know what's ahead. We hear of the Mugar development. We also know that there's more businesses coming to Boston, which are at the end of the red line. So we don't really know. Our forecast only goes out 10 years, but this keeps an option for Arlington to have land to make some other choices down the road should we go this direction.
The town will now hire consultants to look at whether to renovate the Gibbs or put an addition onto the middle school to ease the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade population boom. They'll also look at possibly adding 6 classrooms to the Thompson Elementary School to deal with the rise in students there. The school enrollment task force dismissed adding onto the high school or constructing a new middle school as too costly.
New cases of the Zika virus are being discovered every day, including here in America. The Cambridge Health Alliance addressed the concerns of immigrants from affected countries at a recent forum. News intern Paola Tristan-Aruda was there.
The Cambridge Health Alliance teamed up with the Consulate General of Brazil in Boston to hold a panel discussion about the Zika virus Tuesday night at their Malden Center. Zika, although not a threat to the U.S. at the moment, is causing great concern in countries around the world. The meeting was directed at the Brazilian community, but was open to anyone with questions and or plans to travel to countries with outbreaks.
We should not generate an alarmist situation, but of course it's important that people know what's going on and what is being done to, let's say, remedy the situation and to lower the number of cases and to take precautionary measures.
The Zika virus is a mosquito-borne virus and has been looked at as related to the dengue and West Nile viruses and as well to yellow fever.
Zika is just the latest evolving infection in the Americas. It is a virus. It's transmitted primarily by the bite of the Aedes mosquito. There's one particular breed of the Aedes mosquito that has evolved and it's become very efficient at living indoors and around dwellings.
Experts are also looking at other means by which the Zika virus is spread, including sexual transmission, transmission by blood, and possibly through tissues and organs.
It is better if someone's in a situation where they might contract Zika, that they should use a condom or not have sexual relations during pregnancy.
Only 1 in 4 people who are infected actually develop symptoms for the Zika virus, and even the symptoms tend to vary between common and rare ones.
The symptoms that are kind of the most famous would be things like a rash, a little bit of abdominal pain, some diarrhea, but it's really kind of non-specific. The kind of thing where you just might feel kind of crummy. It's something we call malaise.
Concerns about the Zika virus are only directed at women who are pregnant or will become pregnant when in contact with the virus. Zika has been linked to microcephaly, which causes babies to be born with small heads. Certified nurse midwife Mary Lou Carr addressed new information about testing for Zika.
There's sort of evolving protocols from the CDC. And, initially it was just testing women who had symptoms of the Zika virus coming from an area where there was high transmission, for example, Brazil. Now the CDC is recommended that all women get offered this testing if they came from and they were exposed during their pregnancy to this, or potentially exposed to the Zika virus by living in an area of high transmission.
There are no travel restrictions at the moment to any of the countries exposed. Officials are taking measures to prevent the virus in any way they can.
Around 220,000 armed forces personnel from the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force have joined 300,000 public agents and volunteers all over Brazil to combat the breeding grounds in every house in Brazil.
The panelists also advise people who plan on traveling to take precautions like having mosquito repellents on them and wearing long sleeves and pants in Zika-exposed areas. I'm Paola Tristan-Aruda for Arlington Public News.
Brenda, nobody really even heard of the Zika virus a few years ago, and it's kind of sort of exploded now, but it's nothing to be really that alarmed about, but it is something to be concerned about.
Well, really a lot of good information out there, not only for people here, but especially for people who are traveling between the affected countries and back to America.
Right you are. The MBTA is voting on whether or not to increase fares on March 7th. Charlie Tikotsky, Policy Director for Transportation from Massachusetts, and Len Diggins, member of the MBTA Rider Oversight Committee, address why the MBTA is raising prices and where the money is going.
Welcome. Today I'm here with Len Diggins, a member of the MBTA Rider Oversight Committee, and also Charlie Tikotsky, the Policy Director for Transportation for Massachusetts. And today they will be talking about the MBTA's new fare increase proposals, as well as the canceling of late-night services and the conversation and concerns surrounding that. So thank you so much for joining us here today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
So there's been a lot of talk lately about the MBTA and a lot of problems concerning about the amount of debt that the MBTA has. What seems to be some of the main reasons for that?
The T has the most debt of any transit system in the country, and that has a lot of negative impacts on riders because there's just so much money that that the T has to pay off every year, that you're paying for things that have been put into place many years ago, and it's harder to put money into things that we need moving forward. Yeah. So when you look at the debt load at the T, I believe it's around $6 billion, and every year the T is paying about $450 million on debt service, and that is only a little bit less than the total amount brought in by fares every year. So if riders are paying their fares, that money is pretty much only covering debt service and a little bit more. It doesn't even start to cover operations.
Is there anything else that could be draining the budget right now?
I hesitate to say draining, but things that are impacting the budget, of course, are wages. And for instance, from fiscal year 15 to 16, the wages went up 4 to 5%, and but more importantly, the materials, supplies, and services, they went up 7 to 8%, and so those are things that are rising greater than the rate at which fares are increasing.
Why such a high increase in fare for about 10%?
So Transportation for Massachusetts, we understand that riders do need to pay their fair share, and it's an important source of revenue for the T. We support up to 5% increase every other year. We feel that that's a reasonable, predictable, modest increase. What the T is looking at this year is what they propose right now is either 7% or 10% increase. We feel that's too much.
So is there anything else you would like to add to anything that we discussed about today?
The members of the legislature who want to hold the line on fare increases, they need to hear from the public, to know that the public is behind them. And so if you really care, call, email, tweet, just contact them. Just make sure your voice is heard.
Well, thank you again so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So nice seeing you.
Great.
Charlie?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. For Arlington Public News, I'm Paola Tristan-Aruda.
Legislators will work to update the Massachusetts State Public Records Bill. The Senate and House each passed their own versions for improving the decades-old public records law recently. They will now work out a compromise in a conference committee expected this summer. Local Senator Ken Donnelly explains how the Senate version of the bill would call for municipalities and state agencies to be more accountable when answering a request for public information. I'm Brenda Mahoney for Arlington Public News, joined by Senator Ken Donnelly, who represents Arlington, to talk about public records law. A proposed change to the law was recently passed in the House, another version passed in the Senate. Both aim to update the law and make it easier and more accessible and in a timely manner and less costly to people who are actually requesting public records from state agencies and municipalities. Tell me a little bit more about what the Senate version of this bill proposes.
Brenda, I think it's great that we finally addressed the public records law. It's been since 1973 when the original version was put into effect, and there's been so many different changes since then. What we did is we actually changed the timelines. We believe the timelines in the House version was a little too long. We have 30 days with the possibility of a 30-day extension, but no more than 60 days for the request to be honored for public records. But also we have a provision in our bill that says that if for some reason after you go through the supervisor of records, the Secretary of State, and you've gone through the process and the person that is requesting the records does not get those records, then under certain conditions, they're going to be able to get legal fees reimbursed, and they're going to be able to get court fees reimbursed. And I think that is a real important piece of the legislation to make sure that that there isn't a disincentive to give those records. We need to make sure that we put teeth in it so that people need to make sure they have access to government and access to the information that they need. I think that there are so many people looking to see these changes made, and I think we're so far behind the rest of the country that it would be totally unjustified for us not to be able to come to some agreement. Way too many places, people don't have confidence in their government, and I think that the reason is because they haven't had full access to their government. And hopefully this bill will help people feel a little bit more confident and get the information they need. We need to make sure that they have trust in us, they have the information they need to make those decisions, and we need to have as open a government as we possibly can have, and we're looking forward to this. The public, I want to make it perfectly clear that the focus on this legislation was to update the 1973 Public Records Law. This does not complete what we need to do to make sure that we have our public records being open, including the legislature, including the judiciary, including the governor's office. And I think that this was a first step to update that law. Now we have to move forward and be able to have our law more on bring it up to date for the time that we have with the computer access that we have, and it's really should be easy to get access to it.
Excellent. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Brenda.
For Senator Ken Donnelly, I'm Brenda Mahoney for Arlington Public News, talking about the Public Records Law. Thanks for joining us.
Arlington is one of 155 communities in Massachusetts dedicated to going green. The town has implemented new software in buildings to cut down energy use. News intern Paola Tristan Arruda has the details.
In 2015, Arlington received a $240,000 grant to implement several energy reduction projects. One of them was to upgrade the energy management system at the Hardy Elementary School and install a new system at the Arlington High School. An energy management system, or EMS, is run from a desktop computer and controls both the energy and heating infrastructure of the building.
So someone can sit in front of this energy management system and say, okay, we're looking at this school. On Monday, the school is going to be open from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. We'll heat it from then to then, and then it can go into a shut-off mode at night. But on Tuesday, there's a basketball game, so we'll keep the heat on until 8 p.m., and then it'll shut off after that.
The EMS works with another one of Arlington's newest systems, the Fault Detection and Diagnostic System, which reports what works and what doesn't to allow the town to address and fix problems faster. Part of the grant was also used to put LED streetlights throughout the town.
We changed 3,000 streetlights across the whole town, and that actually cut our streetlight energy usage by 50%. So it saved the town probably somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 a year if you include maintenance savings.
That's not all the town has saved. Along with the projects already mentioned, additional initiatives included replacing steam traps and a commitment to purchase fuel-efficient vehicles. These efforts are estimated to save an additional $312,000, according to town manager Tapdell Lane. I'm Paola Tristan Arruda for Arlington Public News.
Now, Brenda, I think as a population, it's no secret we've all become much more energy aware in the last several years, and it's great that technology has come out with new ways for us all to conserve.
And that Arlington is taking advantage of that technology and implementing it, especially with the help of a grant to do so. We wrap up our series on Black History Month with some more comments from the community. Arlington Public News asked individuals around town, what does Black History Month mean to you? Here's a sampling of the responses we received.
Black History Month is a time to celebrate all of the accomplishments, but it's also a time to understand we have a long way to go in this country to make sure that everybody has equal opportunity to quality education, quality jobs. We need to look at workforce training in our cities and towns for so many of our young black men and women. We have a generation of young black men that have actually haven't had the opportunity to have good work records because those opportunities are not there. So we need to celebrate, but we also need to make sure that we continue the work because we have a long way to go and a lot of work to do. If you look at what's going on, we know that we need to do much better for everyone in this. We need to make sure opportunity is equal for everyone.
I am very happy about the progress that we have made in this country with respect to race relations. And I think a lot of the issues that remain, though, are really based on poverty. And understandably, a lot of the poverty is perhaps institutionalized. And by that, I just mean that there have been structures that were race-based that have led to a lot of black people not having the opportunities that they need to make economic progress in this country. And I really hope that in the next years, decades, and hopefully not much longer than that, we can make a lot more progress so that we can really tap into the vast potential that blacks have to offer in this country.
I think it's really important that we elevate and celebrate this aspect of history, which was overlooked for so long. Some of the challenges in our black community. 3 years ago, we took a trip across country and we detoured all the way down to Birmingham, and we went down to the Civil Rights Institute, and it was really eye-opening for my kids to see what the experience had been for people in this country. My youngest daughter, she clutched to me the entire time going through, and she said, is that real, or what's that? So I think it's really important that we remember some of the dark sides of our history, and that we celebrate some of the leaders in the black community who've made such big contributions.
If you have a sweet tooth but don't want to put in the work to make something, there's another option than heading to the bakery. News intern Stephanie Francis has the story of how in Arlington the baker can come to you.
When her kids got a little older, local Arlington resident Julia Callahan found that she had a lot more time to herself. She decided to start a baked good delivery and personal chef business. We talked to Julia to learn a little more about her business.
I've always cooked and baked since I was a kid, sort of learned from my mom and decided I wanted to turn it into a business. Once I started baking, I just decided it would be nice for people to be able to stay in their home and just have these lovely baked goods show up. And around the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas time, New Year's, it was a real help, I think, to people to have things delivered during that busy time. So I just offered it, and people have really loved it. They really like that aspect of the convenience for them. The ordering process is either through the website, or people have been contacting me directly through just email. So they make their order, I figure out exactly what they want. There have been special orders, things that I don't normally make, but they request their own items, and I've been able to do that. People really love this idea of delivered baked goods. I think everyone's so busy and it's hard to find time to do your own baking, but even more so just to get out and get things and remember to pick them up. So just having them show up has been, I think, really helpful and fun for people. And I would also like to do more of the bakery delivering. I'm hoping to set up a little bike cart that I can use to deliver to people in the nicer weather, and just keep baking.
If you would like to try some of Julia's baked goods, visit juliacooks.com today. On behalf of Julia Callahan, my name is Stephanie Francis, and this is Arlington Public News.
Ooh, tasty looking there. Well, last but certainly not least, APN sports reporter Phil Arcaro brings us this wrap-up of the Arlington High boys basketball team's successful season.
After going 25-1 the previous season and losing their best player to graduation, the Arlington High School boys basketball team has done quite well this year. With one game remaining in the regular season, the Punters have a 17-4 overall record and are currently riding a 26-game home win streak. Through 6 games, senior Colin McNamara was Arlington's leading scorer, averaging 19 points per game. A few games later against Winchester, Colin dropped 30 against the Sachems, giving him the second best performance in the state that week. With 2 wins on the road against Wilmington and Somerville, head coach John Bowler got his 100th career victory with a big 63-39 win over Burlington in the first game of the Be Great Spirit Weekend. In their next home game, Arlington faced crosstown rival Arlington Catholic in the annual Arlington Classic. After being down by 8 points at the half and trailing by as much as 12, the Maroon and White stormed back in the fourth quarter to give a 53-43 victory over the Cougars. In their final home game of the regular season, the Pounders faced Middlesex League opponent Lexington. Despite a few hiccups, Arlington was able to end the season at the Teslowski Gym on a high note with a 69-51 victory and their 28th straight win at home. With another fantastic regular season coming to a close, expect Arlington to be dominant in the Division II state tournament.
Congratulations to the basketball team and to all of the teams that have ended their sports this season as well, but just the basketball team and Coach John Bowler. It was a rebuild year. They lost a lot of seniors who started last year, so congratulations to them.
Do they all get pie at the end of the season?
That would be pie delivered to the court.
Why
that would be
not?
awesome.
Why not? I want some pie. I'm going to go home and eat some pie, I think, when I go home. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I want some pie. Thank you for joining us this week to explore local events and issues affecting Arlington. Check out extended interviews and our latest segments on the web at news.acmi.tv.
And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Arlington Public.
Please join us next time for another edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Paul Whirling.
And I'm Brenda Mahoney. Thanks for joining us.